want to give my bit on Apple being a hardware company, and while I respect emeek, this is something I'm passionate about, and wanted to give my counterpoints to his video. So he first starts off saying he's going to say what he wants to say, even though Steve Jobs has said something else. I think there's some rationale that needs to be noted in that statement. Let's move on.
Apple switched to an Intel processor, this is true. But they did not switch to the standard Intel PC architecture.
Wrong, they did. Just by use of the word architecture, you made it very vague, but they are very much an Intel architecture. They still have to answer to the pre-code micro-ops and everything else. They can have EFI, they can write specific binaries to motherboard, and basically writing specific binaries to whatever you want within the logic board really has nothing to do with performance, and really shouldn't even be used or even merited in an argument of Mac versus PC.
No matter how badly people clamor for it, Apple is never going to release a version of Mac OS X that runs on standard Wintel PC hardware.
What is Wintel hardware? I have no idea what the heck that is. Does that make Apple computers that run Windows or Wintel hardware? I'm confused.
OS X that runs on my PC. Sure you would, you cheap bastard. The Apple Switch campaign is an attempt to get PC users to buy thousands of dollars of Apple hardware, not hundreds of dollars of Apple software.
This point I found really funny, in that the Switch ads are all about software point versus software point, about stability versus instability, viruses, no viruses, speed, so on and so forth. All software related, of which, quite frankly, if OS X didn't happen to be in Apple's court, could they make those same Switch ads with, say, an enhanced version of Blue Box and Yellow Box?
Number 3. Now, during the brief period of time when Apple licensed the OS to other manufacturers, I'm sure all you older people remember this. Apple did license its operating system out for a while.
Alright, I want to bust this myth once and for all and set the story straight. Okay? The clones were a desperate measure to already try to rescue a tanking Apple. Okay? And that many of the clones weren't cheaper. Apple started to tank because its operating systems were terrible. You had even just like Yellow Box and Blue Box. I mean, I could go and I'll actually make videos of the older OSs of Apple and why Apple was searching for an identity within an OS. Hardware is nothing without software. Nothing at all. Alright? Apple tanked because it had no software identity. Not because of the clones.
Company and make up for lost hardware revenue by selling additional software and licenses doesn't understand how the company operates at all.
Disagree again. OS X comes from Next Software, not Next Computers. Steve Jobs and his entire team gave up making hardware to make software. It's ironic that the sales of Macs began to climb in 2005 when they went to Intel. Why would that be? Because it could run more software, and sadly, it could run Windows. Again, the software identity fills in the holes of the hardware, and thus hardware increases. It's very simple.
All I need to do is research the market history of Apple.
Exactly. Research. You'll find out that they were looking for an OS badly, and they were trying to do everything they could, at least hardware-wise, to keep the company afloat, to buy them time to find that software identity.
It's no big deal to Apple. Now, of course, if you hack it to run on non-Apple hardware, you're going to wind up on a first-name basis with Apple's lawyers. That's because Are you tired of hearing me say this? They are a hardware business, not the operating system business.
Again, I would disagree. This has really nothing to do with hardware. It has to do with copyright. And I don't blame Apple. I wouldn't want anybody tinkering with my operating system. Not necessarily the hardware. If you let people go around, it's just like Windows, letting everybody else do with it as they will. And that's why we have, even though pirating is the main issue for Windows genuine software bullcrap, Apple is not interested in people tinkering with their OS, and I wouldn't be interested in it either. But that doesn't really have anything to do with the hardware side of it. As far as Apple's lawyers, and I made a video of this, I'm still very concerned. Basically, SciStar and more cloners are popping up now and giving sympathy to SciStar. I'd always had argued that Apple should change the EFI ROM just to keep these hackers on their toes. But Carr and Farrell, this law firm who has beaten Apple before, decided to take the case for SciStar. They wouldn't have never taken the case if they didn't have a shot, because it'd be a big embarrassment for that law firm who's already taken Apple down before.
And I think what sells Macs, especially recently, is the software such as iPhoto, iMovie, iTunes, and the OS. But it's not what makes them money.
Again, I disagree. Hardware sales went up from 2005 on, which was the Intel switch, which made OS X compatible with a whole crapload of more software. Now, while I stipulate that hardware, as far as Apple, will continue to grow, primarily because they make damn good hardware, and that's why many Windows users use Apple hardware to run Windows. If we're talking about the worthiness of software, okay, because at one time, before Jobs came back, and even before Next was acquired, which established the Apple identity, Windows was considered. But let's take away OS X, all of it, put back the yellow box and blue box, maybe a better version of the two. Put that on the market, and let's see how far the hardware takes Apple. So it is, I will say, easy to make the argument that hardware is the bottom line because Apple ties its software to the hardware. And I then go back to Apple history, just like emeek says, and I look at when the sales started to climb from 2005. And it can be directly correlated to the Intel switch and increasing the software base and what can be used from that OS. Now, what I propose, and I was going to do a couple more videos on this, is especially OS X for Apple will make up any hardware loss of sales that anybody wants to bring up in terms of an argument. I still don't believe that they're going to lose hardware, because you have many Windows users buying Macs just to run Windows on it. Software is just about everything. And I hate to quote it in one of Bill Gates' sayings, in that when he was first doing stuff for the Altair, in that it's just a dumb machine without anything running it. So people need to get a better grasp of hardware to software relationships, like I've tried to report in my videos. Solaris runs stable on x86. Linux runs stable. It is the philosophy difference. Windows says, I'll run on everything. Linux doesn't say that, nor does Solaris, or nor do the IBM systems. They can run on more hardware than just, say, their own proprietary hardware, but their software still controls what they run on. That is the philosophical difference. It is not the hardware difference. Thanks for watching.